beautiful. Sarah Philippi here with Reversing Breast Implant Illness. In my last two videos, I asked two different questions. What was life like prior to becoming sick? And then the second one was, what has life been like since becoming sick? And how has that impacted you? So I really believe that these questions are important and powerful. They help us to paint a picture and tell a story. So I'll explain more in a future video about that. For now, I'd like to continue by asking my next question, which is, what led you to pull the trigger and explant? I always ask this question when I'm on a first call with an explantee because it really helps to put things into perspective, and it helps me to start to uncover their why or their driving force for taking this journey. So this will make more sense as I answer the same question myself. So here goes. The reason I finally pulled the trigger on my explant had more to do with others than myself. And it took me 5.5 years to get to this decision. I was struggling so much with symptoms, and I began to look for answers as to why I suddenly began losing my health. I saw lots of different doctors, none of which really took me seriously. I often left doctor's appointments with the "your lab work looks fine" conclusion and a recommendation to seek counseling or maybe try and spice up your sex life. So certainly not helpful. Soon I realized that I was looking in all the wrong places for the wrong things. And if I wanted to fix my broken body, I had to stop looking for a treatment for my symptoms, and I really had to start looking for a cause. I began to recognize that figuring this thing out was going to be up to me. And it was time that I take, my health into my own hands and find real answers. I really believe that there is always a greater purpose within our struggles. And I believe that one of these purposes for me was to learn how to heal my own body so that I could help others just like me do the same. So I started a journey of becoming a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I did some functional lab work and discovered that I had what we used to call stage 3 adrenal fatigue. We don't call it that anymore. SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, gut dysbiosis, candida overgrowth, hormone imbalances, and a lot of inflammation to go along with my improperly functioning thyroid and immune system. And on top of that, I discovered that I had chronic Lyme disease and neurotransmitter imbalances. So no wonder I felt like crap, right? I did treat the SIBO with 2-month-long rounds of rifaximin. And I made huge dietary changes, but I was still in a lot of pain. That wasn't the right approach. It wasn't working for me. And there was more going on inside my body than I even realized at the time. So I took this as an opportunity really to learn all that I could about what we eat, what we put in and on our bodies, what we use in our homes, and how we think affects us. And I learned how to be a health detective and to search for the underlying causes that are contributing to symptoms and how to address them in order to get on a path to healing. So while making drastic dietary and lifestyle changes and addressing all these hidden stressors that I discovered on the lab work, I did see some improvement, but there was still this missing piece of the puzzle. And, I knew deep down inside that it was the breast implants. And it was about this time when my functional health mentor suggested to me that my breast implants might be the blocking factor in my healing journey and recommended that I get them out as soon as possible. Of course, this possibility had crossed my mind before. And, I had discovered Dr. Susan Kolb's book, The Naked Truth About Implants. And I was convinced that this was probably why I developed all these chronic symptoms, this chronic illness that I was struggling with. And, I didn't just get chronic Lyme disease one day. I had likely been exposed a long time ago, and my immune system was just no longer able to keep the pathogens that cause chronic Lyme disease in check. So despite the fact that as a practitioner, I could certainly understand, how a foreign object could potentially impact health, I just wasn't ready to make the decision to explant. I was going to give it all I had, and in order to avoid having to get them out. So after all, I had wanted them for so long. If you heard my first couple of videos, like this is rooted in childhood. And I spent a lot of money getting them placed, right? And so I was really hesitant and reluctant to get them out. And that's because of not just the financial aspect, but the why of why I got them in the first place. And that I hadn't truly discovered myself, who I am, who I, was deep down outside of my physical appearance. And that really defined me. And so I just wasn't there emotionally, mentally, emotionally. I wasn't there yet to be able to be okay with letting them go. I still had work to do, internal work to do, not just, physiological work to do. So I appropriately addressed the Lyme, the neurotransmitter imbalances, the nutrient deficiencies, as well as various different gut pathogens like bacteria, yeast, parasites, you name it, over the next 6 months as I, worked on gut healing. And I did begin to regain my health. I was feeling better. I was sharing my story, and I was helping others do the same. And many of my symptoms either disappeared or greatly improved. And I considered myself to be a work in progress, but was leaps and bounds from the debilitated state that I was in before. I was probably at that point about 50% better. Unfortunately, I went on with life for another 2 years before finally deciding to explant. So though I felt a lot better, I still had some lingering symptoms. Things like, my menstrual cycle started to become very abnormal, and I still had periods that were quite painful. I still had IBS symptoms, things like that, but nothing that I couldn't handle, nothing that was debilitating. And so perhaps the most devastating thing of all that I was struggling with at this point was fertility issues. And I don't like to label myself with infertility. I don't believe in labels. I believe that thoughts are things, and mindset is crucial when you have health goals or life goals that you're working on. So I won't claim that. I won't claim the word or the term or the diagnosis of infertility. So you'll hear me speak about it in maybe a little bit different way than you've heard other people talk about it. So after 6 months of being unsuccessful at conceiving, I began to do some additional lab work, and really hormones and general lab work appeared to be normal on paper. Long story short, I finally discovered what I had already suspected for many years, that I had stage 4 endometriosis. And I also discovered that there was bowel involvement, meaning that the endometriosis being stage 4 means that it has invaded other organs outside of your reproductive organs. So for me, it had invaded the bowel. And one of my ovaries and fallopian tubes were completely destroyed. So here I am faced with a decision, do I have a laparoscopy and risk, potential complications of the surgery? I have very little faith in conventional medicine at this point, unless it's needed to save my life. Meanwhile, the implants were constantly in the back of my mind as, a potential root cause. And I just knew deep down that they were. I prayed about it often. I was really afraid of what my husband's reaction might be, not because of losing my implants, but because of the financial sacrifice that we would need to make for my health after already having invested tens of thousands of dollars trying to get my health back so far, and just only getting, about 50% better. So this was my own issue. I went back and forth with it in my head a lot. And at the end of the day, I kept thinking, what if this is preventing my body from completely healing and getting pregnant? And what if I have a child with developmental or other health complications? I don't think I would ever be able to forgive myself, because I would always wonder if it was the toxic implants inside my body. And that's not to say that if you are in that position where you had implants when pregnant and breastfeeding and had health complications with your pregnancy, or your child has health issues, that is not to shame you or to make you feel responsible in any way. I believe that when we know better, we do better. And it was at this point, I just had this deep knowing that I trusted And that was what fueled that decision for me. So this is what ultimately drove my decision to explant. And it was no longer about me or my own health. Now it was about something bigger. It was about my ability to give my husband a child and the health of our future children. And so that was the turning point for me, the thing that just led me to finally pulling the trigger on explant, which is what I knew in my gut all along I needed to do, but was too afraid to blindly just trust that. BII isn't something I randomly discovered one day like a lot of people do, leading to that, that light bulb moment of, oh my gosh, it's my implants. I can't believe that no one told me about this. I can't believe my doctor didn't say anything. I can't believe no one asked if I had implants. I can't believe no one warned me that this could be possible. It wasn't like that for me. This was something that I had been wondering and pondering for years. I just didn't have enough evidence to trust that intuition. So now I knew it was time. And, I had been doing a lot of research on BII and different surgeons for the past couple of years at that point. And I knew that Dr. Urzola in Costa Rica was the right surgeon for me. And I'm definitely a strong believer in going to the best specialist for what you need, whatever that may be. So we scheduled my surgery with him and had my breast implants removed within a couple of months at that point. And that was October 11th, 2017. And that was about 6 years, I think, to the day, actually, if I remember correctly, of when I had them placed. So that's my big why. And the reason that I finally was comfortable and confident making that decision. And at that point, it wasn't about the physical anymore. It was about a future. It was about, like I said, being able to, give children to my husband and the health of our future children. So that, I think, is a really strong why, when it's bigger than just, I want to feel better, right? Because we can cope, we can struggle and manage. But I think, especially when it comes to the why for why I had them placed, I needed something bigger than me. I needed something outside of myself. Because the why that I had them placed was about my insecurity and my lack of knowing who I was without them. So there you go. That's my why. And I'd love to know what led you to finally pulling the explant trigger. And so feel free to comment below if you're seeing this video. Otherwise, if you're seeing this by email, feel free to hit reply and email me back and just share with me what your why is. I'd love to hear it. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.